The Pittsburgh Steelers offseason has been a series of mistake after mistake after mistake, and it all started with that bludgeoning of a playoff loss versus the Houston Texans. It was clear then to almost every Steelers fan in the world, and especially to me, that the Steelers are nowhere close to competing for a Super Bowl at this time. This roster is the fourth oldest in the league. Aaron Rodgers obviously is on the verge of retirement. There's not really any other avenues to get better other than going into full rebuild mode. That seems really clear to me. I don't know about the rest of you, but rather than do that, Mike Tomlin steps down, opening up the opportunity for the Steelers to go into rebuild mode. But I guess the ego of ownership and the front office said absolutely not. This team in our eyes is somehow a Super Bowl contender. Let's double down and try to do this again next season. And quite frankly, some of the free agent acquisitions have been okay, but I really want to talk about what's next for this Steelers team, and it starts with the hiring of Mike McCarthy. The whole reason that you say you want to go out and continue to win is because you're going to hire a new coach who doesn't have this issue like Mike Tomlin did with not being able to win playoff games. Well, let's talk about that. Since 2011, so post-Steelers Super Bowl with Tomlin and post-Super Bowl win with Mike McCarthy in Green Bay, Mike Tomlin has won 62% of his games. Mike McCarthy has won 61% of his games. In the playoffs, Mike Tomlin since 2011 is 5-11 with 5 division titles. Mike McCarthy is 6-9 with 7 division titles. So look, a slight upgrade, but if you're talking about real Super Bowl contention, neither of these coaches have been anywhere close to that. So I think Mike McCarthy is not actually a bad coaching hire for another team that needs stability. This locker room needs energy if they're going to compete, or they need a rah-rah coach for a rebuild. Neither of those things I would describe to Mike McCarthy, especially at this point in his career. But I think about another thing that goes into next season. The Steelers' defense was atrocious last year. They were 28th in yards per game, 26th in third down defense, and 29th in passing yards per game allowed, the worst in Tomlin's career. And he's a defensive guy. How is Mike McCarthy going to come in and revitalize this defense? Now, I understand they have almost an entirely new defensive staff in the works. Makes complete sense, but it doesn't seem like they are transformational. Now, this is a veteran roster, don't get me wrong. Like, look at some of the discipline stats. They had the 8th fewest turnovers, the 4th most takeaways, the 8th fewest penalties, and they were 7th in red zone scoring defense. So this is a savvy, vet-happy roster. Lots of leaders in the locker room, including guys like Aaron Rodgers and Cam Hayward. It makes sense why you want to keep those guys around, and it would be hard for them to stick around if this team was going into rebuild mode. I totally understand the notion, but I go back and I look at this Steelers team last season, 1-4 against playoff teams. And most of them were blowouts versus Buffalo, a 26-7 loss, versus the Chargers on the road, 25-10 loss, versus the Packers, 35-25 at home. The Seahawks at home, 31-17. They have one win versus a playoff team, and that was at New England. It was a 21-14 loss, and obviously that Patriots team at the beginning of the season was nowhere near what the Patriots were near the end of it. I mean, just a couple weeks before that Steelers game, New England lost to the Raiders, the worst team in the league. And look at them at the end of the season. They were Super Bowl champions. So that New England team that they beat was definitely not the same one. You know, they get into the playoffs, and then, of course, they go up against the Houston Texans, which, in my opinion, top 3 defense in the league. Makes sense why they didn't score a lot of points, but that Texans offense, the entirety of the season, was anemic, and they lose 30-6. Now, the Texans defense did score a touchdown, so really, they only gave up 23 points, but Houston, I don't believe, scored 23 points in a game more than 4 or 5 times the entire year. And this is a road playoff game for the Texans. So holistically, I look at where the Steelers were last year versus where they're going into this year, and this is my analysis. They are nowhere near Super Bowl contention right now. Not to mention, as of this recording, Aaron Rodgers has made zero commitment to being with Pittsburgh next season. Mike McCarthy, I believe, said that he would like to. Aaron Rodgers went on the Pat McAfee show and didn't say that he was absolutely on board, but he did say that the Steelers hadn't offered him a contract yet. Not sure what that's about. Maybe they missed him on FaceTime while he was at his house in Malibu. If you know, you know. But let's continue with the rest of the acquisitions that the Steelers have done throughout the rest of this offseason. For starters, they go out and trade for Michael Pittman Jr. specifically from the Indianapolis Colts. They really got him for nothing, and it's quite simply because the Colts couldn't afford to keep him on the cap. His cap hit right now is, I believe, $17 million this season, and the Steelers gave him a fat contract extension. Now, most people, I would say, or most teams, I would say, this is a pretty good move. But Michael Pittman and DK Metcalf, are they not the same player? I mean, I understand that Metcalf is much bigger, stronger, and is better at the point of attack, but they kind of have the same route tree, so that move really didn't make a lot of sense. They go out and get Jamel Dean, who's battled some injuries over the last couple seasons, but a solid corner. My team needs for the Steelers going into this offseason was wide receiver to pair with DK Metcalf, more corners and safeties because most of the corners and safeties with the Steelers were getting up there in age, some offensive line depth, and of course, quarterback, being that Aaron Rodgers doesn't return. And quite frankly, they did answer these questions. They go out and they get Jaquan Brisker from Chicago. They get Darnell Savage Jr. from Buffalo, Jamel Dean from Tampa Bay, Michael Pittman Jr. from Indianapolis. The only thing that they didn't fill out as of yet is the offensive line. I think that they'll do that in the draft this year. But man, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like I'm listing out all these problems to you as something supplemental for the Steelers to run with, but it just doesn't seem that any of these moves, or even a combination of these moves, is enough to get over the hump. Not only do you have to go out and beat Houston, but you also have to compete with tons of younger teams, the Bills. This was a down year in the AFC. The Chargers are going to be better next season, and they were a playoff team. Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater will be healthy again, so that offensive line is going to be unbelievably good. You still have the Broncos, who have made a couple of splash moves, including signing guys like Jalen Waddle. The Ravens should be as in quotation marks better, just because Lamar Jackson should be healthy. That was a 9-8 or an 8-9 Baltimore Ravens team with Lamar Jackson missing half the season. They should be better. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals are a train wreck. The Cleveland Browns usually are a train wreck. So the Steelers have the opportunity to win the division, but we've seen it time and time again with Tomlin. That meant nothing. It did not equate to playoff wins, 5 of them in 15 years. With the same thing was said with Mike McCarthy, right? We go to the NFC Championship 3 years in a row with Aaron Rodgers and lose all 3 of them, I believe, to San Francisco. Or you lose to San Francisco 3 times in the playoffs. That's not okay. And Mike McCarthy has had a knack for having some lack of physicality on his teams. The Steelers really lacked physicality on the offensive side of the football last year. Haven't really seen much of that answered as of yet. Once again, the draft still exists. This is another opportunity for the Steelers to put together a more competent roster than they had last season. The real problem that I see here is while, yes, you're answering these short-term problems like grabbing guys to fill starting spots and add depth to the locker room, but it doesn't seem like this is a get-over-the-hump type offseason. And the Steelers have a much bigger hump than the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Buffalo Bills or the New England Patriots, right? The Patriots were in the Super Bowl. The Jags went 13-4, won their division, and went toe-to-toe with maybe the second or third best team in the AFC. The Steelers lost a wild card game at home. These are much different stories. So let me know what you think of the Steelers offseason. Was this actually the fix that they needed? And are they this close to competing for a Super Bowl? ? I'm just not buying it at all. This seems to be an ego play by ownership and the front office. It could be, a point that I'm proven wrong with, but I seriously doubt it. We haven't even seen Aaron Rodgers sign back with this team, kind of like the drama that they had last year. So let me know what you think of this in the comments. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you guys all so much for listening, and we will see you next time.